would do everything I can to start either Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel this year. I would only start Joe Flacco or Kenny, and probably Joe if, oh my gosh, this is a disaster.
The NFL had a plan for Shedeur Sanders, and Shedeur just blew it up. They hoped the 5th round would silence the noise. But Shedeur Sanders just did the one thing that keeps NFL executives awake at night. The NFL's worst nightmare begins. They tried to bury him, quietly, strategically, as if pushing Shedeur Sanders into the 5th round would make the spotlight disappear, as if that draft slide would somehow silence the noise, mute the following, and dim the brand he built brick by brick through discipline, dominance, and media magnetism. But what the NFL didn't realize or chose to ignore is that players like Shedeur don't get buried. They get awakened. Falling that far in the draft didn't kill his momentum. It multiplied it. It sharpened his focus. It gave him a chip so big it could fill the entire Browns locker room. He didn't show up to Cleveland angry, he showed up locked in. And that's even more dangerous, because Shedeur Sanders wasn't there to give interviews, drop sound bites, or play the role of the media darling. He didn't need to talk, he let his presence speak for him. From the very first day of rookie minicamp, the shift was undeniable. Coaches noticed, teammates noticed, reporters noticed. There was a sense that this wasn't just another rookie, this was a statement in cleats. Every throw he made, every read he executed, every quiet moment where he chose to listen instead of speak, it added up. It sent a message, not just to the Browns, but to every team that passed on him. Shedeur Sanders didn't arrive with noise. He arrived with purpose. And he's doing the one thing the NFL feared most, making them regret it. Silently, relentlessly, completely. The fall that made no sense. How does a quarterback with nearly flawless mechanics, elite footwork, elite composure under pressure, and some of the most impressive numbers in college NFL get passed over until the 5th round? That's not just a scouting oversight, that's systemic hesitation, because it clearly wasn't about talent. Shedeur Sanders' tape speaks for itself. He reads defenses like a seasoned veteran, he moves with purpose, and he puts up results. But Shedeur didn't play the NFL's game the way they wanted him to. He skipped the Senior Bowl. He didn't show up to the Combine to wow with measurables or scripted drills. He made a decision to be judged by what actually matters. In-game performance, leadership, consistency, and that scared people. The league thrives on control, on fitting players into clean boxes. But Shedeur wasn't going to be boxed in. He's his own brand, his own identity, shaped by his father's legacy, but not defined by it. Teams weren't just nervous about his game, they were nervous about the media spotlight he brings, about Deion Sanders being in the picture, about a quarterback who doesn't need the NFL to be relevant, and that's what spooked them most. A player they couldn't own, only respect. Rookie minicamp changed everything. Cleveland rookie minicamp was never meant to make headlines. It was supposed to be routine, a chance for coaches to evaluate new talent in a low-stakes environment. No pads, no real pressure, just fundamentals. But then Shedeur Sanders walked onto the field and everything changed. The atmosphere shifted. Suddenly, what was meant to be a quiet, internal exercise became a media event. Cameras tracked his every move. Reporters didn't just observe, they analyzed. And comparisons to fellow rookie Dylan Gabriel started almost immediately. But it wasn't just hype, the difference was visible. While Gabriel looked like a rookie adjusting to the speed, Shedeur looked poised. Calm, sharp, his footwork was crisp, his arm strength was effortless, and perhaps most importantly, his body language told a story, one of composure, command, and quiet confidence. Local insiders weren't shy about it either. One reporter stated flat out that Shedeur's arm talent looked vastly superior. That's not the kind of praise usually thrown around during a walkthrough. He didn't need pads or contact to make a statement. He made the field feel different just by stepping on it. Shedeur turned a no-contact camp into a national talking point, not with noise, with presence. He ignored the noise, and that spoke louder. In a league where image often outweighs substance, where flashy moments and viral sound bites dominate headlines, Shedeur Sanders chose a different path. Silence. And in that silence, he made more noise than most. No dramatic quotes designed to stir controversy. No cryptic tweets to keep the media guessing. No branding stunts to boost his following. Just focus. When a teammate tried to joke with him during a lighthearted moment on camera, Shedeur barely cracked a smile. That clip circulated online, sparking questions about his demeanor. But those paying attention saw something else. Discipline, focus, intent. He wasn't brushing people off, he was locked in. He knew exactly why he was there, not to perform for the cameras, but to prepare. He wasn't trying to steal the spotlight, he was trying to earn his place in the locker room. And in a league full of noise, his quiet work-first approach sent the loudest message of all. He means business. The NFL created this. The fall wasn't just unfortunate, it was engineered. Analysts have acknowledged it openly. Shedeur Sanders was never given a fair shot during the pre-draft process. Not because of his performance, not because of his ability, but because of his name. The Sanders legacy carries weight, and with that comes media attention, public scrutiny, and expectations that make some front offices nervous. Teams weren't evaluating just Shedeur the quarterback, they were evaluating the baggage they thought came with being Deion's son. The fear of headlines, attention, and locker room dynamics clouded judgment, but that fear has already backfired, because what the Browns have now isn't just a late-round pick, it's a poised, professional, NFL-ready quarterback with a first-round mindset. Shedeur is media-savvy, but never attention-seeking. He's quickly becoming a leader without asking for the spotlight, and ironically, the spotlight won't leave him alone because his quiet leadership demands it. Deion's shadow was the league's excuse. Colin Cowherd, in one of his more insightful takes, laid it out with blunt honesty. People are often too intimidated to tell strong personalities the truth. When someone like Deion Sanders walks into a room, commanding attention with confidence and charisma, the air shifts. Opinions get filtered, honesty gets watered down. People nod instead of challenge. And that culture of avoidance trickled down to how teams viewed Shedeur. He wasn't just a quarterback prospect, he was prime time's son. And that label came loaded with assumptions, fears, and narratives that had little to do with Shedeur's actual ability. No GM wanted to risk the media circus, the perceived power struggle, or the pressure that came with the Sanders name, so they passed. But in doing so, they missed the truth. Shedeur wasn't leaning on his father's fame. He was carving out his own path, not loudly, not recklessly, but with discipline, intention, and quiet fire. Media presence without the ego. Shedeur Sanders isn't the kind of rookie the NFL is used to. He doesn't fit the mold, not of the raw, wide-eyed, late-round pick looking for a moment of glory, and not of the brash, attention-grabbing brand builder who plays to the cameras. He's something else entirely. He isn't chasing headlines. He isn't out to prove the haters wrong with Instagram captions or carefully curated tweets. But he's going viral anyway, not for antics, but for actions. For the little things, for showing up to the facility early before most have even parked their cars, for staying late, throwing extra reps, watching film, listening to coaches. That's what's making waves. He says the right things in interviews, nothing flashy, just focused, no drama, no outbursts, just professionalism. And when the microphones are off, he disappears into the background, right back to work. In a league that often rewards style over substance, Shedeur is flipping the script. For every loudmouthed rookie who's fizzled out, Shedeur is a reminder that sometimes the quietest ones are the most dangerous. He's letting his habits speak for him, his preparation, his body language, his respect for the process. And the message is clear, he's not here for attention, he's here for impact. While others talk about what they'll do, Shedeur is already doing it, and the league doesn't quite know what to do with that. Because when the cameras eventually have to follow him, not for what he says, but for what he does, the NFL won't be able to ignore him any longer. Dillon Gabriel wasn't supposed to be the benchmark. And yet, here we are. At Browns rookie camp, the attention didn't go to the higher drafted quarterback. It went to Shedeur Sanders. Despite being taken later in the draft, he quickly became the focal point of comparisons, especially to Dillon Gabriel, who was picked ahead of him. But the contrast was clear. Gabriel looked fine, serviceable, but Shedeur, he looked composed, commanding. The zip on his throws, the smoothness of his dropbacks, the way he carried himself between drills. It all screamed confidence, not cockiness. Even in non-contact settings, without pads or pressure, he moved like someone who understood the game at a deeper level. And the leadership, that wasn't manufactured either. It was subtle, natural, earned through body language and consistency. That's what turned heads. That's what makes NFL teams nervous. Because if a fifth rounder already looks like the guy in practice, imagine what happens when the lights actually come on. The NFL is a business, and Shedeur is great for business. Here's the part the NFL doesn't want to admit, maybe not even to itself. Shedeur Sanders is great for business. He's everything the league says it wants in a young quarterback. He generates media interest without scandal. He moves merchandise. He drives engagement across platforms. His name trends even when he doesn't speak. And yet, all the attention surrounding him is rooted in NFL, not off-field drama or off-brand distractions. That's rare. That's marketable. That's powerful. He's a walking headline, but not for the usual reasons. No arrests, no ego-driven meltdowns, just high-level play, controlled confidence, and the aura of someone who understands how to navigate the spotlight without needing to chase it. He's polished, composed, and already has a massive following. If he becomes a star, he's not just another quarterback, he becomes a face of the league. And even if he doesn't hit superstardom, he's already shown he can carry narratives week after week. For a 5th-round pick to generate this much attention, it's nearly unheard of. That's why executives are sweating, because they know they let something special slip through the cracks. And the longer Shedeur keeps doing everything right, the louder that regret becomes, one silent, productive practice at a time. The Browns' long-term plan might be built around him. The Cleveland Browns aren't heading into this season with Super Bowl or bust expectations. They're not trying to make a desperate run, they're trying to reset everything. This is a foundational year, a year to build, evaluate, and lay the groundwork for long-term success. And in that context, Shedeur Sanders fits like a glove. He doesn't need to be a savior on day one. He needs to be exactly what he already is: focused, disciplined, and ready to develop. If he struggles, no panic. The Browns have 2 potential top 10 draft picks lined up next year. They're positioned to reload again if needed. But if he shines, then Cleveland just walked away with a franchise quarterback, one they got in the 5th round. That kind of upside is rare, and that gives the Browns something they've never really had at the quarterback position: flexibility, no urgency, no forced starts, no rushing development to justify a high pick. They can let Shedeur grow organically, let him sit, learn, absorb the system, or step in if he's ready. Either way, the future is in their hands, and if he keeps progressing the way he has so far, they may have just pulled off one of the biggest steals in recent NFL draft history. The league still doesn't understand. Even now, some analysts are calling him QB4. Some are wondering if he'll even make the team. That's how slow the system is to adapt. They still don't get it. They still think status matters more than substance. They think a 5th-round pick should fade into the background. But Shedeur doesn't do background work. He may not be loud, but his presence is loud enough. And eventually, even the most stubborn scouts will have to acknowledge it. For Shedeur, success isn't about being named week 1 starter. It's about earning trust. It's about learning the playbook, mastering the system, and building relationships. He's playing the long game. He knows this isn't college. This doesn't highlight reels and NIL deals. This is the league, and every day he shows up early, studies late, and makes the right read, he gets one step closer to changing his future, and possibly Cleveland's. The fan base sees it before the league does. Cleveland fans aren't blind. In fact, they might be the most battle-tested fan base in the NFL when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks. Over the past 2 decades, they've seen more than 30 names under center: hyped rookies, broken veterans, Heisman winners, and one-year wonders. And each time, there's been a promise, a spark, a headline. But more often than not, it fizzled out. The city has learned to be skeptical. They don't fall for empty flashes anymore. What they're seeing now with Shedeur Sanders, it's different, and they can feel it. It's not about flashy media clips or viral Instagram moments. It's about the quiet moments. The early mornings when Shedeur is first in the building, the way he lingers after practice, not to pose for photos, but to throw a few more reps. It's about how he engages with teammates, not as a star, but as a learner. It's the subtle nods from veterans who've seen enough to know when a rookie is legit. The respect is building, not because of his name, but because of his habits. That's what makes it different. They hear it in the press conferences. Coaches don't praise him to drive headlines. They mention him because he's earned it. They feel it in the stadium air, even in preseason when his number gets called. This isn't a fluke. This isn't a feel-good story. This is something new, and even if he's not the starter, not yet, Cleveland fans know exactly what they're looking at. A shift, a future, a quarterback worth believing in. The future starts sooner than expected. Whether the league is ready or not, Shedeur Sanders is on the rise, not just because of what he does with the ball, but because of what he refuses to do when the spotlight shines. He doesn't chase approval, he doesn't try to fit in. He's focused, determined, and if the NFL's worst fear was giving him a reason to come in angry with something to prove, well, they just gave him 5 rounds of fuel.